presentation slide suggests. I'm calling this talk almost custom. It's child's play, so you can click the next slide. Thanks. So basically, I'm just going to take you through a very sort of top level look at the design flow I have for customising a WordPress website using a Genesis child theme. So I've got down there a little pro tip, which is something that I learned the hard way. So it says provide a definition of customisation in your contract and state the limitations of the process. So that's for anyone who's delivering these kind of projects to anyone. If you are doing a customised WordPress website, I do recommend that you let people know what the parameters of that are, whether it just be flicking colours and things in the options panel or whether you're actually going to add extra functionality. So my kind of basic customisation for my client sites are usually flicking, changing the typography, the colours, integration of the logo and logo elements, images and image treatments, backgrounds, textures, etc. It's pretty standard. I'll also take it as far as playing around with custom templates, widgets and functionality, but that's usually sort of add-ons to my custom package, sort of customised package if you like. So before I get too far into it, I'll just talk you through some of the tools that I'm using. My toolkit is like this long, and I just kind of keep changing tabs all day long, which isn't very efficient, but these are a few of the main ones. So Genesis, for those who aren't familiar with it, Genesis framework is another theme for WordPress, but it works as a framework or as a parent theme. It's I kind of describe it as another layer to WordPress. It's got its own inherent functionality, and then you can build child themes on top of that, and you can do pretty much anything with them. So if that's kind of what you want to do, I recommend looking it up. I've got links at the end of this to have a look at it. I use dynamic products by Cobalt apps, which are an extension of the Genesis theme. So you can either have the dynamic builder theme, which is like an options panel on steroids, which is great if you're a designer and don't know any code and just happy to sort of reference your design and turn things on and off. But you can customize pretty much any part of your site using the dynamic builder theme, but they also make an extension to or a plugin for Genesis as well. So with some extra extensions available, including being able to plug in a new homepage, which is what I do and what I'll show you that I've done in this project. Coda 2, that up until like 3 days ago was Text Wrangler. I was a bit cheap. Coda's wonderful, I found out, and I wish I was using it 6 months ago. It's just a text editor or a code editor. Man, which is how I sort of have set up a local environment for building WordPress websites. Creative Cloud, obviously Photoshop, Illustrator are the main things that I use when I'm building these kind of sites. Asana, which I'll come back to in a sec, but Asana is sort of like an open source task management tool, and it's very powerful, and it's free, and it's awesome, and I encourage you to have a look at it if you aren't already using some kind of task management in your workflow. Firebug, I put that one there. It's a little bit of a almost incidental in my day now. I think I just have it sitting there always open on Firefox. It's an inspector. There's, I think Safari and Chrome and all of them come with their own inspectors, but I haven't gone past Firebug. I'm so used to it now. And I use it in a few ways, particularly when I'm doing mock-ups for people that do include custom, like child themes that are already built. I might go and actually just see what I can do. I might have a quick flick around and just see how flexible that template is for me to mess with the CSS before I even put it forward. And sometimes I use it just to make quick global changes to making my mock-ups quickly. So I might just change the global font on the whole site that I'm looking at, take a screen grab, and then use that as a base for my mock-up so that I don't have to like then go in and recreate the text areas in Photoshop to make it look like my client wants. And the last one there is Envision. There's another app that I've been told about called Cath as well, but I use Envision to send my mock-ups and designs to my clients, and it allows me to put little notations on them, and you can add revisions and things like that. I also use it to protect my designs a little bit, because if I send something via email and they decide, you know, just had this experience happen, so it's a bit raw, they decide that they don't want it, they don't get to keep my designs, so I kind of prefer to have it over, and then I can take them down at any time, so I kind of prefer to have that over emailing PDFs and things like that. It's just an option. Okay, so I mentioned I was going to just come back to Asana. I've taken this screen grabbing because it is part of my workflow, which is just a quick screen grab of what I've created for the Micah website, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. And all I do is I set up a gigantic, it's like got about 70 things on it, task list of all the things that I do whenever I create a website. And I've got a master of this set up in Asana, and I duplicate that when I start a new project. So there's always new things that I add to it. There might be a plugin set, but it really gives me a great sort of guideline of where I am with the project, and if I need to get someone else involved, I can invite them to that workspace and assign them, and it's just nice to have. It's nice there when it's really, really, really late at night and I'm sort of clicking between Facebook tab and Facebook tab and wondering why I've got two Facebook tabs open and I really should just be installing, I don't know, whatever they're installing a Kismet or something. So that's how I use Asana in my kind of day-to-day, and it's always there, it syncs to my phone, and I actually am able to invite people to my projects using that as well. Click. Okay, so my basic workflow for customizing a child theme is to take a design brief. I usually take a very thorough one. I drill my customers down to like what their favourite design sites are, or what their favourite sites are, even if they have nothing to do with their business, because I just need to know quickly what they like the look of, because that's unfortunately really important in the small websites that I do for my customers. I then check if they've got the content, and if they haven't, I sort of send out red light beacons and have to decide whether or not I can start the project or not. I'm a bit of a walkover and have done before, started it without client, without content, and been burned several times. So I'm not actually trying to refine this process so that I can get that content delivered to me up front. So if I have, I can discuss the structural placement, the user journey, and provide a sitemap for that client. And then we start talking about what it might look like, and that's where I introduce the concept of the child themes. I don't use the word child themes to them mostly, I just say template. And sometimes I don't even show them if I think that I already know what they want, and they're the kind of customer who doesn't need to see it. They're not going to understand the translation of someone else's theme to theirs. I might just do a mock-up of the homepage. I actually only do the mock-up of the homepage first. I don't do several, I just do one. And I'll do the homepage first, because the homepage usually incorporates a lot of the styles that I'm going to use. It introduces the colour palette, the image textures, all the, the background images, all of the fonts that I'm going to use. And it's a great point to start a conversation so that I don't waste time doing the entire suite of mock-ups and then find out that I don't like really much about it at all, and we can film that on the homepage. So once if they want any revisions to that homepage mock, or if they hate it, I at least am only at a certain point. But assuming that they like it, I'll then mock up the other pages that they are asking for, that we've agreed to in our contract. And once that's approved, and I do have an artwork approval form now, as of last week. Once that's approved, I'll then take it into Map and start building it. Now, the beauty of using Map for me is that I can just clone an entire site with all my plugins, everything that I need, turn them all on, and I've got a whole, I've saved myself 20% of the normal time start from scratch. Using a framework allows you to sort of get familiar with the kind of plugins and things that you might use, so that helps me a lot. So I'll then build out the design and upload it to the staging server, which is usually just my cheap hosting with a password, just for them to get an idea of how it's working. They usually come back with lots of changes. Where's this? Where's that? And whatnot. That's fine too. We go through the process and it comes back to me. Eventually, we get to a point where we can test it. Using a framework again means that, and a child team that's already partially there, means that a lot of the testing has already been done. So it's only the new things that you're introducing that you have to test most of the time. And then once it's approved and paid for, I'll put it up on their site. Any questions before I click? No? Cool, it's pretty standard. Yeah?
A couple questions. When you talk about taking comments on board from the client and making changes, do you limit the rounds of changes you make for them?
I do. So I actually, most of my contracts state 2 rounds of revisions, and I expect that those rounds be given to me in bulk.
Yeah.
So I work with a Dropbox folder with my clients, and some of them I invite to my Asana workspace, but a lot of people are resistant to that, and so I try and make it easy, but I have to set those boundaries. So I have a very concise contract or proposal with my clients that states the rounds of revisions, and when we get to those limits, I just need to have a conversation with them, because often it's just something that we don't foresee that's causing a hold up. It's not usually because we're getting it wrong. But yeah, having those limits is important, because they can just blow out.
Are there other areas that you found are sticking points or can get
Content is the biggest one. If they don't supply me content up front, I don't know what I'm working with, and they don't know what they're going to see. And once they see it, then they start thinking, and that's the problem. So if I can do those designs with the content already in, I don't have to then explain to them why it looks glorious and look way better than their sort of 3 jotty paragraphs, because I can then design to their content. So content is just absolute, like the thing that's going to make or break the job is whether that content is at least sort of 80% given to me up front. And I also make sure that when I'm creating pages, they know how many pages I'm going to be creating for them up front. I'm happy to do all of their site for them, but then I need to know how many pages they're going to have so I can price it accordingly. It's not completely open-ended. So next,
so you said the invoice before you uploaded it to the...
Well, that's the beauty of having it on my server, is that they can see it and it's there, but it's not theirs to play with and do anything with it until I'm sort of compensated for it. Especially when, they might be building their content themselves and they just haven't made it yet, so they're just, I need it when my job's not done, not when their job's finished.
So do you give them a time frame? How long they?
I give most of my projects are on a 4 to 6 week. I work for myself without a lot of other help, so I give them a 4 to 6 week kind of.
To look at your work and then give you feedback.
This is the other thing, is that because I work Monday to Wednesday mostly, I've got a small child, so Thursdays and Fridays are just paperwork days for me if I can try, if I can. So I actually deliver most of my deliverables on a Wednesday, and they get a cycle until sort of COB Friday or Thursday, Monday if I'm feeling lenient, to get me any changes that they need done, and then I can commence that round of changes. And I also have a time frame, a very succinct time frame, sort of the week commencing, and then in my terms it says that if it's delayed by actions due to you being slow, then I have the right to bill you in accordance with the proposed time frame. I have yet to exercise that one, but you can see that there's a need for that. Anything So with all that in mind, I just wanted to take you through a case study of a site that I designed that went live just before Christmas. Client's happy with it, so that's what I want to talk about. So her brief to me was just, she had an existing WordPress blog. She'd done herself, she'd been DIYing websites for about 6 years. She wasn't doing too badly, but it was very huge. It was like when I downloaded a backup of her old site, it was like 1.7 gig, and just huge photos. It was very poor performance, you know, it needed to work. So it was now time for her to position herself as a high-end artist and creative, because the work that she's producing spoke a whole lot better of her than her website did, and most people would look at a website and think away, not give her a chance. So the galleries and the blog were a massive focus for her. She wanted one of those kind of cool grid layouts, so we had to work with that. She needed an online quote form. She wanted it to look more like a website than a blog, so she wanted a sort of a website homepage as opposed to just a feed on the front page. And she was pretty clear to me that she wanted the design to be quite spacey and neutral and clean, so that she's got really wild designs. Her pieces would really shine and sing without having to compete with the actual design of the site. That's a little quote from her, and we have one from the chairs. Yes. So Micah's content was ready, and she was very organised. She did everything. She was awesome. She also had a photo shoot done, so I had some great photos to work with. At the same time that I was talking to her, the foodie Genesis theme, like Shade Box, came out, which is one of the many child themes available to the Genesis community. This is a premium theme, I paid for it because of an outside supplier, outside the normal dev license for Genesis, if you're looking. But I had actually posted this on my Facebook page, my work Facebook page, and if you click, her reaction was pretty cool. I only really looked at the foodie child theme and wet my pants with excitement. Which is a fun time. So, to that foodie theme, there was significant things required changing, but the overall aesthetic of it was probably 80% there, so I thought that was a pretty good start for this one. The main changes for the design were typography, colour palette, imagery, and the structure changes, which were quite big in this one, was a new homepage, a new gallery template, a newsletter call to action on the homepage, because it was no longer just a page with a sidebar where the newsletter could sit nicely, and the blog needed to be laid out as a grid. So I like to send my clients a little in situ version of their website as well as the mock-ups, because they're not always able to translate a big long website into, sort of big long picture into a browser. So I like to give them one of these. I also gave her the full spread. That was her initial reaction. So I was quite happy with that. And I didn't really have to go through rounds of changes with this particular design, which I think is why it's left such a nice feeling in my heart. So I'll just take you through. So this is the grid layout of the blog. And you can see at the top I've actually put the newsletter thingy up there, newsletter sign up box up there, which when it's responsive it actually moves and becomes just somewhere down the page. I used for this grid, there's a plugin called the Genesis Grid Loop plugin, because the existing theme didn't have, their actual blog didn't have, all the archive pages didn't have a grid listing, so I put it over there. This is like a gallery, so I used a plugin that actually used the main WordPress gallery and displayed it differently, so that because she had 20 odd galleries that she wanted to show and she wouldn't be able to do them quickly. She previously had experience with Next.js, which meant putting them all into another. She didn't want to use that, she wanted something that was really quick and easy and displayed the way that she wanted, and I just created a new template for that so that it would be wide, and also had a back to galleries page, so it would go back to a main gallery clip. When I deliver these things, I put all this work into them. I like people to know that it's actually their theme. It's not just an off-the-shelf theme that is quite disposable. So I do tend to, I change the style sheet. I do credit the original designer. There's still a lot of their legacy work in there. It's just a courtesy. I don't think everyone does that. It's just me. And I make the screen grab so that they know that it's theirs. It's not just a theme. Oh, what happens if I click this one? Some of my clients still have admin access. That's at their request. So I just kind of protect this little bit of it by making sure they know it's theirs. So this process is not foolproof. I know I'm not a PHP developer, but I've learned enough over the last 12 months to be able to get my way through the Genesis framework and work with the functions PHP file, and I've sort of got a bit of a background and things like that. So of the pros of this process would be probably it's a swift production process. I probably only need a day or two to get the designs of the actual build looking like the mock-ups. Testing has been, as I mentioned before, testing has mostly been done on the child thing, so there's not a huge amount of uncertainty there. The client can see the proof of concept before you start, so if you really need to show them how something's going to work, you can show them the base child thing. And for me, as a designer, still working around code, I can get familiar with the things. You can bank your own child themes along the way, so I've started building my own child themes, which I don't sell, but I can use them for other client builds. I think the cons are lack of appreciation for the value of the process that you go through. I think just people still think WordPress is disposable, and especially working with themes, if someone's come to you and they already know about themes, it can just be a like, can you turn it on and off thing, but I still have to like show them that it is a process. They do understand that custom is different to bespoke, and the limitations therein, so it's a bit of an education process. There's not as many bells and whistles on the themes that I use because I like to just get to the point. I don't like having these gazillion things built in that I don't know how to use, so I tend to use the lean themes that Genesis provides rather than using theme forest themes. And I guess the con is because you have written the code yourself, like the style sheets, I still firebug to find out where things are to change them and things like that.
And so with Genesis, if you built the board, you change the child theme that you purchase.
Yes.
They do upgrades, it will work.
So a child theme and a child theme usually is only the functions PHP, like the child themes at a base level is just the functions PHP that changes and the style sheet. There are lots of other things you can do with it, but 90% of the sites I'm doing, I'm just making those two files. So they've just done a big upgrade, I think, towards the end of last year to HTML5 and some CSS3 stuff. And, I'm actually just leaving my client sites that are done with the older versions of themes because I customised them. I mean, it was just CSS, so CSS and HTML. I think it's also worth taking into consideration that websites probably only got a life of about 2 years, and there's nothing that can really break in that amount of time. Like when I say 2 years, I mean just until the technology that you've used to build it is probably due for a good upgrade. And I think that's part of the education process. I do have my contract that I use third-party open source software, and if they change that, then I'm not responsible for, doing the upgrade for free. But I'm pretty confident with being able to upgrade Genesis, the base, and being able to just tweak the styling when I need to of the child thing. Yes. Yes. Oh, sorry.
About responsiveness, how do you implement it if the customer was involved?
Responsive is just something I don't actually choose or put forward themes now that aren't responsive. If they want them in particular, like if someone's come to me with a theme in mind that they want to use and it isn't responsive, I'll talk them out of it, or I'll try and build it in the responsive base using dynamic because it's just not worth it. Yeah, 2 weeks after you launch, my mum tried to log in and tried to contact me from my contact page and she couldn't do it, and it's like, wow. So generally I tackle responsiveness within the build at the start of the process. It's something that just comes with my client's builds. Oh, sorry, yeah.
After you've launched, how much maintenance do you do? Do you set them free and then they're off, or do you kind of...
I have just turned on my client confidence plans. I will give them 2 weeks grace period to tell me that anything's broken. I give them a massive spiel on maintenance. I have a checklist of how to do maintenance in just 10 minutes a week. I give them all the information they can possibly need to do it themselves if they want to, and then I have a pricing plan for if they want me to do it. I don't think you can do more than that. I do sometimes suggest people go to a managed host if they really want someone on it, or I'll suggest just if my price is too much for them. I've got a guy in Hong Kong, he's lovely, and he will look after someone's site for $25 a month for the basics. So I'll recommend him as another option. I give people options. If they don't choose it, then it's not my problem anymore.
So do you still do hosting for them, or do they do their own hosting?
I won't do it unless they're paying me.
Right, yeah, of course.
Yeah, or then my mum, in which case I just look after her. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. What comes up now is the maintenance.
Yes.
Maybe you also need to upgrade 2010, 2011, 2012,
Yes.
or some.
I delete all of them. I delete all the things that I'm not using. You can always go back and get 2012, 2013. You can always go back and get most of the update, like any of the things that you want from the WordPress repository. I turn off any themes or delete any themes from from the themes folder that I'm not using. Most of my builds will just have Genesis and which I'll leave in there.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. I've just got a bunch. I'm not sure where these are going to go, but
we'll put them up on our Facebook.
Yeah. So there's a link to all the things that I've got there. So there's just one slide left. It's got my face on it. Hi. Thank you.